So for our MP3, we decided to add a feature to our map where if you clicked anywhere on the map, it would show the closest location to it, and then it create a button that would then reset it back to what it was. So for here, we click here, and it shows the closest location, or we click here, it'll show the closest location. And then to get all the locations back, we just hit the closest button here, and then it'll bring them all back. And the other functions of the app still work. We can still scroll. We can still do the long press. So to create this, the first thing we did was create the find closest method.
And this essentially just uses the distance formula and actually calculates sort of like the hypotenuse between the point that you actually click on the map and what ends up being like the places that actually compares it to, which is all of them. And we do this by basically setting this double smallest is sort of the first thing that we add to the list so that we can compare stuff in the for loop. And you can see we use the distance formula here by taking the square root of A, which we have set as the longitude, and B, sort of the difference actually, and B for the latitude. And we essentially run through this for loop, comparing all the places to what is smallest, and when the smallest is found, it is like put in smallest, and like you compare it in the for loop each time to now the new smallest, and then we return what ends up being the closest place, and yeah.
And then with that method, we had the single tap confirmed helper implement it. So we created a list to show, which we created by using the find closest method and using the get longitude, get latitude, and all places as the parameters. And then we update shown places with that method having been ran. And then an issue we ran into that we couldn't figure out that took us forever to resolve was we would just click on the map and then it would not do anything else because you click on it and it's done because there's no way to reset it. So we found the easiest solution that would likely to be create a button, which we were very unsure on how to do. So we did end up using resource for that, which I'll get to in a little bit. So to create this button, I went to the main activity XML and then moved the button into the frame, which we had a hard time figuring that out as well because we didn't understand that you had to move it into the frame layout and not put it in the map.
I believe the way you had it before was the button was like under the map.
Yeah, and it wouldn't, and therefore the button wouldn't show up, and therefore it wouldn't be effective. And so then after that, after we got the button in there, we had to implement it. So up here on create, we created the button closest button equals find view by ID closest button, and then we set it on click listener. So every time it is click, it updates shown places to show all of the places. And now some sources we used to figure this out. One issue we actually needed a source for was implementing the distance formula onto a Java program, which this is one of the many sites we use to help us with that. This is a little more simple to figure out, but they kind of more or less broke down the basic points
like
of
the
it.
Pythagorean theorem, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And then once we got that all figured out, as I said, the biggest problem we had that we had to figure out was creating the button and getting it to successfully work and using all the methods for that. So we used a lot of the the Android developers' website, a lot of the tutorials on there to help us, and those proved to be very useful. As well as this is a YouTube video that we went through a whole bunch that kind of really helped us show how to create the button, how to identify it.
Good video.
It was perfect. And yeah, that's about all of our MP3.
Yeah.
Thank you. Forgot to show this on our first take of the video. We have our commit of our MP3. And yeah, so we have everything on here, the new button, and then down here we have the creation of the button and find closest and the closest button being called here.